the feast of the exaltation of the Holy Cross is linked with the triumph associated with reconquering it from the Persians in 629. It was the Emperor Heraclius. When it was brought to the holy place of Jerusalem, it would seem that a miracle took place. The Emperor was not allowed by divine providence to come in on horseback. He was stopped by a force from on high and had to dismount. The cross had to be glorified and not the man. Providence has allowed that a tiny part of that cross should come to this little hermitage because of the link with the Cistercians who had the custody of it for centuries at Santa Croce in Jerusalem, one of the 7 major basilicas in Rome, where the major relics are kept from the Passion. It is called Santa Croce in Jerusalem, Holy Cross in Jerusalem, because a great chunk of earth was also brought from the Holy Land, and it would be, therefore, as it were, a bit of Jerusalem in the heart of the Eternal City. The sign, the titulum of the Lord's condemnation is there, written in the order of the Hebrew letters, therefore when it comes to Greek and Latin, in reverse. Jesus of Nazareth, King of the Jews. One day, Monsignor Danzig, bishop, was executing an exorcism, for he was an exorcist, by function as well as by office, for every bishop potentially is. And the demon was not keen on going away, and eventually he raised his voice and said, "In that case I will get the relic of the Holy Cross." It was the one in question, and immediately the demon howled from the possessed person, "Not that one, not that one! It has his blood on it." It was through providence that when, after the failure of the foundation made from there to Mexico, through political problems it had to disperse, that it came back, and the person who had been responsible for it was a friend of mine, and he was able to split it up into 3 parts. One was kept by Maria San Salvatore, where they still call me every year, and one was given to one of the remaining founder members, who is now a priest in the Grosseto diocese, and one was given to me, so it is in the other tabernacle normally. It is here right now, be honoured, and one is aware when one touches it that one is touching what healed humanity. It was through misuse of wood and a tree that we fell in the garden. It is through the redressing of the wood, through the tree of life that is the cross, that we are healed. One small drop, cried in the play Faust, of this precious blood would be enough. He had sold his soul to Satan, and Satan is coming to look for his soul at his death. One small drop would be enough. That same blood is in our chalice. How can we be distracted? There are icons that show the angels collecting in chalices the blood flowing from the sacred wounds. Every time we make the way of the cross, which is a great thing to do on a Friday, it is good to be at the foot of the cross, for that goes back to the earliest times that Our Lady, it seemed, had put together a little way of the cross so as to do that way of the cross every day and relive the passion of her Son. The Stations of the Cross are a way of doing geographically where we are what has the merit of being there on the spot. It's very noisy actually on the Via Dolorosa in Jerusalem itself. We can do them quietly, and we know it is a devotion very pleasing to heaven, the way of the cross, but it needs to be done with interiority. It is good to pause and not just say prayers while doing it. When the Lord is lying on the ground at the third station, it is the danger of the soul staying in his sin. What is grave is not so much falling, but staying down. The demon loves to keep us down, to pin us down. We have to get up straight away and return to the healing of the precious blood in the sacrament of confession. The opening of these places after the Constantinian peace was important. It was already in 335 that they had built the church of the Holy Sepulchre, and we know that already on that first Easter, after its completion, the miracle of the light did happen. There is power. We must remember that in our faith we look at Jesus, we look to the cross, as in the desert the Hebrews were invited to look to the bronze serpent to be healed from the sting of the fiery serpents that were decimating them. So too we look not to ourselves, not to other men, not to scandal, but to the cross and the one who sanctifies it. And we, for our part, do not spend our time analysing other people's sins, but doing what our Blessed Lady asked of the little children at Fatima, and through them of us too, to be aware that people are going into hell, because why? No one is praying for them and making sacrifices for them. And so the cross there is on the horizon and needs to be grasped with both hands. The first instance is that of what Providence allows us to suffer in the outworking of our life each second of the day. And then, and only then, do we invent our own sacrifices in addition. It has no sense to invent penance and refuse the one that God actually gives us directly. The advantage of accepting well that which comes to us through the pain, internal and external, visible and invisible, of the day, is that it has no glory and no self-will. And so, as in the case of James and John, we are invited not to look for glory, attention, but to accept the glory of the passion, the chalice of the Lord. Can you drink from the cup that I must drink? Well, we can, by saying yes to this pain which here and now comes, which when accepted can save a soul which is going right now into the beyond. Alas, when they were drilling, it was as it were a race for the deep down, as it had been for the high up way back in the 60s and 70s. The Russians were competing against the Americans, conquest of the sphere of the air, but also of the sphere of the underworld. And although the Americans did start, they stopped in that battle, and the Russians carried on, and the deepest hole ever bored was in Siberia. And what was their surprise when they found what was down under? Deep sea divers have also found it in vents on the seabed. Horrible noises, and then also strange creatures. The darkness of the underworld, and the heat and pain torment is the reality of unhandled sin. It has no sense to ask for forgiveness and carry on sinning at the same time. At the cross, like Mary Magdalene, we kneel and pray on bended knees for mercy and avoid all future collusion with the powers that wish us everlasting harm.
O tree of life, my Saviour's cross, prepare the tree of Eden's loss. Stretch forth thine arms o'er all mankind, that wandering Adam shade may find. Victorious tree, triumphant tree, the universe lies under thee. Unmoved thou standest o'er the world, unrocked as this small globe is whirled. Thou art the crux of all that is, the hinge where hangs all that is his, and what is ours in time and space, the universal meeting place. Thou pointest upward to the skies, thou pointest to where Satan lies. Thou reachest out to sea and land, thou holdest thy Creator's hand. O Gibbet, thou shalt judge the world, the echo of thy final word shall resound from end to end on space that doth full extend.